Welcome to the MamasteFit Prenatal on-demand workout. In this workout, we're going to be targeting the pelvic floor musculature, helping to improve your thoracic mobility and your hip mobility. The reason why we incorporate thoracic mobility into our pelvic floor release workouts is because your rib cage position can influence how we can position our pelvis, and our pelvic positioning influences what type of tension we have within our pelvic floor. So in this workout, we're going to be doing the 3 movements of thoracic mobility, which is going to be a front to back type motion with pelvic tilts and spine rounding and arching. We're going to find lateral side body opening, which is important for the rib cage mobility, in addition to rotation, which is the last type of thoracic mobility we need to be able to do. With our hips, we're going to be focusing on finding some internal hip rotation and external hip rotation by releasing some of the musculature that is attached to the hips to make it easier for you to find each of those positions. We're going to do 1 round of these movements, 1 minute each per side, and we have 3 total movements that we're going to be doing. Movement number 1 is going to be an all fours hip shift with pelvic tilts, so we're going to need 1 yoga block for that. We're then going to move into our 90-90 side camel, where you can use a yoga block if you would like to bring it into a little bit more intensity, but it's optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. And then we're going to finish up with our adductor rock back with thoracic rotation, where you don't need to use the yoga block, but it can be offered to you as to give you a little bit more support in that upper body. So once you've got your yoga block, let's go ahead and get down on the floor and get started with today's pelvic floor release workout. We'll get started with our pelvic floor release down on the floor and grab onto your yoga block. So we're going to start by placing that block underneath one knee. And then I'm going to shift my weight over towards that elevated hip. Move your hands over if you need. And we're going to move through some pelvic tilts. So drop the belly down to the floor and then exhale to round in the back as you tuck the chin to your chest. And we're going to alternate between the two. As we round in our back, think pull belly to spine, and so I'm kind of pulling my rib cage and pelvis closer, which is helping me to find more of that round in my back. So inhale, drop the belly down, exhale. Inhale to drop the belly down, exhale to round. So we'll do about 1 minute per side with each of these movements to help you find that release within your pelvic floor. In this movement, the elevated hip is in a more internal pelvic rotation, so we're stretching more of that posterior half of the pelvic floor on that elevated side, while the lower hip is in external pelvic rotation, and so the front half of that pelvic floor is stretching more on that side. Let's go ahead and switch sides. So bring that yoga block underneath the opposite knee. And same thing, I'm going to shift my weight over. So if I lifted my lower leg, my body position would not change. So drop the belly down to the floor and then exhale to round. Think pull baby to spine. Inhale to drop. Exhale to round. As you round, you may feel a little bit more of like a stretch in the lower back, glute area. And so the elevated hip, posterior pelvic floor is stretching a little bit more, and the lower knees, front half of your pelvic floor is stretching a little bit more. So we have this kind of diagonal tension of stretch through the pelvic floor right now. The asymmetrical position is allowing you to get a little bit more to one side than the other in comparison to like a bilateral stance where like both legs were like an internal hip rotation. So let's go ahead and move that yoga block to the side, and we're going to come into our 90-90 side camel. So one leg is in front, the other leg is behind. So my left leg is forward, right leg is back. If you want a little bit more, take that yoga block and place it underneath that back ankle, which is for me the right side. I'm then going to lean towards the right side and then bring my hand down kind of behind me as I extend in the hip. So I'm feeling more of a stretch in my left side body, and then I'm feeling more of a stretch through my right hip flexor, and I'm just kind of alternating between the two. And then pay attention to how it feels on this side. Like, how comfortable are you in this position? Where are the areas of tension or like sticky points that you're feeling? And then I want you to compare it to the other side, just to kind of take note of what type of asymmetry you may have. And again, asymmetry is normal. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. It's just something for us to be aware of when we're doing our workouts, when we're doing our mobility, because one side may need a little bit more focus than the other. Let's go ahead and switch sides. So now my right leg is in front, left leg is behind. If you want to use the yoga block for that back ankle, feel free. And then reaching towards the left side to stretch through that right side body. Right hand comes behind to extend in the hip to feel more of a stretch in that left hip flexor. Reaching to feel that stretch in the right side body. And then extending for more of that left hip flexor. And so for a lot of us, this side tends to be a little bit more tight compared to the other. So starting with our hips, the right hip tends to like more internal hip rotation, and the left tends to like more external. And so this position just by itself may be a little bit more uncomfortable for you. We tend to have a little bit more compression in the right side body. So right side body openers may feel a little bit more challenging. And then that left hip flexor tends to be a little bit tighter than the right, because again, it's pulling that pelvis forward into more external rotation. So again, just paying attention to how it feels, where those sticky points are. So go ahead and grab that foot and come forward. And now we're gonna come into our adductor rock back. So I'm gonna start with my right leg out to the side and my left knee underneath. If you want a little bit of support, you can place one hand, like the right hand on the block. So I'm gonna come back, drop down to that right forearm for my rotation. If you want to reach, feel free. Usually the rotation is pretty limited. And then I'm gonna come forward. Again, you don't have to use the yoga block if you don't want. It just gives you like a little bit more support. Another way to do the rotation is just to bring that left arm out to the side and then coming forward. So again, yoga block is optional. Without it, you can sink a little bit deeper into it. If you want a little bit more support at the bottom, like let's say you don't feel like you can get that deep, coming down to the yoga block can be a great option for you. If you want to add the reach, feel free. Feeling that big stretch through that right inner thigh. And so because the right leg loves internal hip rotation, your right adductor may be a little bit tighter. You might notice that it feels a little bit more tense than the left. So let's go ahead and switch to the left side now. So coming over to that right foot, we're going to stretch that left leg out to the side. Again, if you want the yoga block, feel free to have it to come down to. It is optional. So shifting back, dropping down to that left forearm, and then coming forward. And then choosing what you want to do with the upper body or with that right hand, either kind of tent it out to the side or reaching up with it. And then pay attention, how does this left side feel in comparison to the right? Does it feel the same tightness? Does it feel maybe a little bit less tight compared to the right? And that concludes the pelvic floor release workout that we're doing for today. So in this movement, we had 3 exercises. Each of them was moving the thoracic spine or the rib cage. In its 3 movements, we have our front to back movements, our sideways movements, in addition to our rotational movements. And then we were also incorporating different types of hip movements. So the hip shift was focusing on pelvic rotation. So we had internal pelvic rotation, external pelvic rotation. We moved into the 90-90 side camel and adductor rock back, which brought one leg into external rotation, the other into internal rotation. And so all of these different movements help to create different types of tension and release throughout our pelvic floor. So your rib cage position matters, your pelvic position matters when it comes to releasing tension within your pelvic floor. So we hope that you loved this workout and that it was helpful for you. Let us know in the comments below which side you felt was tighter for you and which movements were your favorites that you're probably going to incorporate more often into your routine. I really love the 90-90 side camel, which is why you see it so frequently throughout their programming. But thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.